Hey y'all, welcome to week 4 of your first year of drum lessons. This is it, we're done with our first month already. Wow. This is the drum set portion of the show, as you may have noticed. And today we're going to continue with some very simple things. We're still not going to have any handouts or written music or anything. We're just going to learn stuff by me showing you and you copying what I do. Next week, we're going to start with some written music. So try to get everything that we've done up until now and this lesson really solid before you go on to next week. Okay? If you sort of try and rush ahead, you will get frustrated as we move on, because next week the difficulty is gonna ramp up a little bit. Okay, so make sure you're really comfortable with this stuff before you move on. We're going to talk about 3 simple concepts today. I think they're simple. First is some general motion. We're going to introduce a rudiment to the drum set. Technically, we're going to introduce 2, and then we're going to combine all the drum beats that we've done up until now into one thing. So the first thing I want to do is think about some simple motion. And you've got a snare drum, you've got some toms, you've got some cymbals. We're just going to focus on the snare drum, tom 1, tom 2, and tom 3. And we're going to add some bass drum. But first, let's just think about what we can do with these 4 drums. I'm going to play 4 notes on each drum. If you were paying attention in the other part of the lesson, you might guess these are 16th notes. You are correct. I'm going to count them 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And this is the single stroke roll, right? Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you may have noticed when I got to the end here on the floor tom, I had to make kind of a quick move back to the snare drum. We're going to talk about something to do about that in the near future, but tonight, just accept that you're going to have to make a quick move. Okay? I'm going to add one thing. I'm going to add the bass drum at the beginning of every group of 4. So we said these are 16th notes. I'm playing 4 notes per beat. I'm going to play the bass drum to outline that beat. Okay? And that sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, sometimes we don't want to do 4 notes. We just want to do 2. So let's do 2 notes on each drum. These are now going to be 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 1, 2, ready, go. And lastly, we're just going to play 1 note on each drum. It sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that's really all there is to it. Just practice those groupings with and without the bass drum. If you feel like you can put them together, it's jumping ahead a little bit. We're going to talk about that next time. But if you feel like you can put them together, feel free to put them together. The point is just to get you moving around a little bit. And it's a very simple, assuming you're right-handed, right? You're going to be moving with right hand lead around the drums. If you're left-handed, you have a ton of options, which really, really, really briefly, you can either play on a right-handed drum set and just adapt, which in the long run will give you lots of advantages because you'll be playing the hi-hat with your left hand and the ride cymbal with your right hand, or you can move your ride cymbal over here and you'll just have lots of freedom. You won't have to cross over. Or you can turn your drum set around and play left-handed, in which case you'll be leading with your left hand, right, going around to the left. There isn't really a right way or a correct way. It's all what makes sense to you. If we played the piano, you wouldn't have an option, right? You would just have to play the top part with your right hand and the bottom part with your left hand. So the drum set really is the most customizable instrument. And so if you're a lefty, you have some decisions to make. And if you're a lefty and you're a beginner, those decisions might be overwhelming at first. The nice thing is any decision you make at this point isn't going to be set in stone in respect to that. So don't freak out about that. Okay, so one of the things I talked about was when I got down here and I wanted to come back to the snare drum, I had to get my left hand out of the way so I could play with my right hand, right? Because I was playing right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. But we have a rudiment whose job is to help us change hands, right? The single paradiddle. So what I want to do right now, nothing else, I'm just going to play paradiddles, and I'm going to play right, left, 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 back and forth, okay? And then you should see I have tons of time while one hand is doing the diddle. I have tons of time to get the other hand to the other drum, okay? So since I'm starting with my right hand, I'm going to start on the floor tom, and then I'm going to go to the snare drum. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can try that on different drums too. I have 2 toms up here. I'm going to play that on the 2 toms. So I'm going to start with my right hand on tom 3 because I want to move to the left and then back to the right. And here's how that sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And for now, that's really all you need to worry about, is just moving back and forth from the left to the right. If you don't have a drum set, if you only have a drum pad or 2 pillows or anything, right, you can use the paradiddle to work on this back and forth motion, and it'll help a ton, right? So don't be afraid to start working on your motion, even if you're not playing on a drum set, okay? A lot of students, when they start, they don't have drums, and there are many ways to work on your drum set playing without a drum set. None are as good, right, as playing on a drum set, but they're better than nothing, right? Okay, so the last thing we're going to do today is we're going to put the 3 beats that we've done so far together. So first we did We Will Rock You, right, which we said was bass, bass, snare, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Elvira, right, which was bass and ride cymbal together and snare and ride cymbal together, bass and ride cymbal, snare and ride cymbal, bass, snare, bass, snare. And then last week we played what I described as the most important beat you'll ever learn, right? 8th notes on the hi-hat, bass drum on 1 and 3, snare drum on 2 and 4, boom, bap, boom, bap, boom, bap, bass and snare and bass and snare and, right? So we're going to put those together just to get our heads thinking about coordination and independence. And so we're going to put these together in a little bit different way, but it'll make sense when we get to the end. So the first thing we're going to do is take the ride part from Elvira and put that with the We Will Rock You part. So now instead of playing both hands on the snare, I'm going to play just my left hand on the snare. I'm going to play 2 bass drums, right? So 1, 2, 3, rest, 1, 2, 3, 4, bass, bass, snare, rest. And with that, the whole time I'm going to play quarter notes on the ride cymbal. So that sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, pretty simple. So now I'm going to take that same thing and I'm going to play it over with my right hand on the hi-hat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Still pretty simple. I'm going to play the same thing, but instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I want you to count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's exactly the same pattern. And if you want to rewind the video a minute and count this with the other pattern, it'll work, right? All we're doing is changing how we're counting. We're changing from feeling like we're playing mostly quarter notes to feeling like we're playing mostly eighth notes, okay? So now the bass drum is going to be 1 and 2, snare on 2, and then 3 and 4, right? So bass on 1 and, snare on 2, bass on 3 and, snare on 4. And that sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, so from there, we can maybe speed that one up, maybe not quite as fast as how we were playing last week with all those tunes, but we can speed it up a little and see how that sounds. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, not bad. We're going to do one more thing. We're going to kind of take half a step back and a step forward. We're going to put that eighth note bass drum pattern with the quarter note Elvira pattern. So now what's going to be happening is my right hand is going to play quarter notes while my right foot is playing eighth notes. So my pattern between my right foot and my left hand is still going to be bass, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare. But now it's going to be right hand and right foot together, right foot by itself on the and then both hands together on the 2. And then that'll happen again, 3 and 4. Okay? This is one of the most important things you can learn. This is the start of our 4-way independence. Okay? Getting your right foot to be able to do stuff while nothing else is going on in between your right hand. So I'm going to do this really slow at first so you can see how it sounds. So let's do 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Not too bad, right? I'm going to move my right hand over to the hi-hat, and I'm going to speed that up just a little, just so you can see how it sounds at a more typical tempo. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Let's go one more step, a little bit faster. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so that's the last 3 weeks thrown in a blender and put together. Okay, we've got eighth notes happening on our right foot with quarter notes on our either hi-hat or ride cymbal with our right hand. Like I say, this is huge. When we get to eighth notes, this is going to make it so playing 16th notes with your bass drum makes lots of sense. I'm going to show you how that works just so you can see. I'm going to go back to eighth notes with my right hand. I'm going to stay on the hi-hat. And I'm going to play some 16th notes with my bass drum. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. That kind of thing. I'm just going to improvise for a second just so you can see how it'll sound playing the bass drum in between those hi-hat notes. I'll play for a measure, I won't do that, and then I'll put some in. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's a lot there, and we're going to get to that in the next few weeks, okay? So you want to make sure that you get this lesson super rock solid, right? Because we haven't even really talked about foot technique too much or foot builders. So we're not going to go that fast for a little while, but those rhythms, those 16th notes in between the 8th notes, that's how you're going to make your bass drum sound funky. You can do so much with just 8th notes and 16th notes on the bass drum. I mean, so much. I had this fantasy of writing a book that was going to have all the possible variations of 16th notes of your 4 limbs together and on all, all 16 partials. And it came up to something like millions of possibilities, right? So even with just 16th notes, you have millions of possibilities of combinations to do between your 4 limbs. Okay, so get really grounded with these quarter notes and 8th notes, and then when we add 16th notes, it'll just feel like another step along the road. It won't feel scary and overwhelming, okay? So we've got some simple motion, we've got some paradiddles back and forth, getting to see how our rudiments work in context. Yes, that's what paradiddles are for. Paradiddles are for more than that, but paradiddles are for that. And then we put our first 3 weeks of drum beats together. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for today. And yeah, practice hard. And I'll see you next week. And I hope you're doing well, and I hope these lessons are serving you well. And I'll see you soon. All right, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel because it helps. Definitely press the notification bell. I've been doing some live streaming, and those are going to be kind of random. So the notification bell is your best bet to see those and join me live. And yeah, I guess that's it. All right, so I'll see you next week. Practice hard. And have a great weekend, y'all. Love you. Bye.